Incredibly enlightening. I think we've been exposed to some things that maybe you knew and had forgotten about, things that maybe were in your blind spot. And as a leader, it's been really great to get increase in terms of the arsenal of things that you know or can be exposed to.
So that's what I like of the course, is that they really try to challenge you to think broader and not just in what you're good.
Quite experienced moderators, I must say. I learned quite a lot from them in collaborations with colleagues.
That really made things practical and made you understand, and also ignited certain things in you as a passion.
I got a personal reflection of who I am as a person. That has helped me to understand what a leadership role really is.
I think the biggest topic about responsible leadership and how, regardless of where you are in the organization, responsible leadership is really something that should be conscious in terms of how we do things, even on a day-to-day.
So it's just for leaders to start taking responsibility for their choices, that as a leader you have to make certain decisions that is out of a place of humbleness.
The overall aspect around reflection has come out for me as very key. Going back, reflecting and applying those reflections in the assignments has been the biggest highlight.
I think the sustainability model was really good. I actually initiated a project when I went back after the first face-to-face block in Stellenbosch and going back to Johannesburg. Started with just a thought, resulted in an action. The culmination is something that we're actually changing what we're doing and changing lives in the school. So for me, that was really good.
Really finding myself as a person. What is it that I stand for and how that has impact on the people that I'm leading. And that really was one of the biggest things that came out from this course.
Futures thinking for me was very interesting, talking about how volatile the world is that we trade in today and what it could possibly look like in the future and what that impact could be in your own organization, in your own company.
The financial modeling, attending these sessions, the finance sessions, has given me a certain insight in terms of how I can apply it in my decision making.
Being open to listen and listen to learn, be able to listen to try and gather information. Every single situation, opportunity that presents itself is an opportunity for you to learn or to assist and to help to navigate solutions.
I think my perception is very much a continued learning that you're able to bring back into the organization. I think sometimes we're very stuck in a leadership way or a leadership style, and you don't know what else is out there that could actually better you and better your team and better your organization.
A diverse view can actually also stimulate your knowledge and make you look at life in a broader sense.
They will shape the way we lead moving forward. Well, in my case, I cannot go back and lead the same way. I feel like it has transformed the way I will lead in the future. I think
A lot has changed in how I behave personally as a leader, reflecting on what I do or what I've done or what I'm about to do.
Some of the pre-work that you need to do guides you, understanding that in the first module, knowing where you play, what are some of your weaknesses that come out. You're just doing it for an exercise, you're really willing to learn from it. I'll definitely say that, come in with a passion, coming to listen, coming to get involved, and then you leave a changed person.
It's about understanding that whatever you do and talk, the impact that you have to those that are following you. That has become more and more clearer to me, what my role is as a leader and the responsibility that I have to those that are following me.
Immensely valuable. I think people come from different countries, different industries, highlighting their differences and their perspectives really kind of opens you up to a world of different ways of looking at an idea.
Having to sit down with someone from a different country, from a different industry, understand how they do things both professionally and culturally, have really opened my eyes.
I think also just listening to the way different countries operate and look at things helps me, because I also have a footprint in Africa with the businesses that we have. You don't just have a South African element here, you have an African element, which really helps you for the future, well, specifically for me.
Being in a group of people from Malawi, Mozambique, Botswana. We got to learn how some of my colleagues in other parts, neighboring countries, deal with specific issues. And I think that diversity that came through are valuable lessons that I will certainly take home and then apply in making a difference with Namibia Airports Company and hopefully with the rest of the country.
Enlightening.
Humbling.
Amazing.
It has been amazing.
Enriching.
Life-changing. One word with a hyphen.
Allow me to say a hearty good morning to everyone. I'm saying good morning from the sunny Western Cape in South Africa. And if you are joining us from another country, I don't exactly know what time it is in your day, but in South Africa, we're still in the latter part of the morning. And so I was just struck watching this little video of our participants of the previous program and with the clothing. This morning, we're all sitting in like golf shirts and like sort of half sleeves and stuff like that. But a lot of that sort of recordings was made during the winter time in the Western Cape. So what a lovely sort of surprise to see where we are in terms of our seasons as well. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it's a season where people want to develop themselves. It's a season where people, in terms of their own careers, are also looking at what is next for me. And so I want to, on behalf of our director, CEO, Dr. Chris van der Wiffen, my channel director, Ms. Claire Kelly, the rest of our team who's joining us this morning, I want to say a hearty welcome, and we're really privileged that you've decided and chosen to join us this morning for this information session. We're hoping that as we go through a little bit of what we want to share, that this will really help you in making an informed decision around your future development needs as an executive as well. Following next, I'm going to quickly share a little bit around who we are as an organization, and then we will be talking around the High Potential Leaders Development Journey, after which I will share some info around the actual executive development program that we're very proud of, as we can see the impact it is making in the leadership in Africa and beyond. After that, we'll have some opportunity for you to look at some Q&A, but before we get there, we will also just share information around what are the possibilities after the actual EDP that you would have completed as well. So if you are ready, I feel ready. I think let's get going. Just before I get into that, you are free to sort of post some questions in the chat if you so wish. Like I said, we will have a Q&A session, but we're also very mindful that it is in the middle of the day and people have lots of meetings and stuff. So we promise we won't keep you unnecessarily longer than what is required. But please communicate with us. The rest of the team will keep an eye on it, and they'll respond to some of your questions over there as well. So who are we as Stellenbosch Business School Executive Development? As you are quite familiar, we are part and parcel of Stellenbosch University, and as any university, there are many different faculties. So in the Economic and Management Sciences faculty, they have the Business School, which is commonplace for many other academic institutions. But in the Business School, we also have the division responsible for postgraduate qualifications, like your MBAs, your MPhils in future studies, also an MPhil in development finance, but also postgraduate diplomas. And so that division is just known as Stellenbosch Business School. But in the school, we also have another division who has the responsibility of developing leadership and management short courses for working professionals, and that's us. So if you're wondering where you are in the world of academia and exec development, you are with Stellenbosch Business School Executive Development. And what we're doing is to look at how can we contribute to the development of working professionals by developing and enrolling participants into these leadership and management short courses as well. So who are we in terms of our credibility out there? I think it's important to note that we are quality assured by the business school, and I talk about that as the academic side of things, because our focus is more on becoming more pragmatic. So we are quality assured by the business school itself, and we are also accredited as part of the university ecosystem by the Higher Education Quality Council in South Africa as well. In certain and selected region-specific courses, we are registered with Botswana Qualifications Authority and also with the Mauritius Qualifications Authority. But this is my moment to really brag about who we are and to really show that we're not a Palooka Institute. We are the proud holders of the Triple Crown accreditation, which is actually just an accreditation awarded to about 1% of business schools worldwide. And who awards this accreditation? That's what we get it from, amongst other, the Association of MBAs, also known as AMBA, the European Foundation for Management Development Quality Systems, also known as EQUIS, and last but not least, the American Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business International as such. And so, ladies and gentlemen, when I say that, we pride ourselves in that, but to keep this accreditation going, we therefore also put ourselves through rigorous amounts of scrutiny to ensure that the programs that we develop is quality in the market and really, as I like to call it, scratch where it itches for the leaders in our society. By the way, I love using that because I can imagine, you can sort of imagine with me, there's nothing more frustrating than having a little bit of an itch on your backside and you're asking for someone to scratch it, but they keep on just being next to the itch. You know, like it's just missed. So we try not to avoid that. We try and make sure that we are scratching where it actually itches for leaders as well. So now we can go forward. So let's talk about your journey. For us, we look at a sort of offering that help leaders from the beginning side of leadership, which we refer to as New Managers Development Program, and we then progress our leaders through until they can reach the place of the Executive Development Program. So in between, we have the Management Development Program, which is just known as the MDP, and then followed by the SMDP. Now, this morning, I'm going to be talking to you about the EDP, but I wanted to give you a sort of a glimpse into what is happening and how do we get to the high potential leaders development journey to ultimately get to that point where you work within society as well. And so how we frame this is to say that for the new managers, they leading a greater focus on managing and leading themselves. For the middle managers, it's more around managing others. And then we move towards managing a business. But for the EDP, our focus is how do you now lead within society? Just so, by the way, and for those of you who are interested in terms of the NQF levels, so our programs are aligned to different NQF levels within South Africa, which is the National Qualifications Framework. And within that framework, our programs ranges from NQF 5 to NQF 8. And all that means is that the scope and the presentation of our programs are aligned with the complexity of the National Qualifications Framework in terms of those distinct levels as well. So if we then say we want to talk to you about leading within society, and hopefully that is why you've joined our session for today, let's provide you with a little bit more information around the Executive Development Program. So our program, in terms of its context, realizes that for our leaders within society, they have to deal with the shifting need of or nature of shifting global priorities, which obviously present significant challenges for them as organizational leaders. They also, within their executive teams, will need to appreciate the systemic nature of a shifting landscape, whilst at the same time, they need to balance that corporate scorecard as well. And so therefore, within the program, we place greater emphasis on developing those techniques and improving executive and team level performance as such for for our executive leaders. Now, part of the context still, we're then looking at this particular program that we say, so our program is not going to be only focused on South Africa. And so therefore we would like to attract participants from South Africa and across Africa. In fact, we are hoping that we can attract more international from a broader spectrum of different countries as well. But the focus here is that the common denominator is their level of influence within their organizations. And so our faculty that we then utilize in terms of ensuring that we have a very, very common conversation that adds value to everyone on the program, we then select our faculty as subject matter experts, which bring a wealth of experience, but also knowledge from a theoretical base, but mostly being pragmatic and how they would want to make that theory come alive within the classroom. We then complement our great faculty with guest speakers with multinational experience. And then a big part of the program then focus on some pre-reading and case studies that as participants will have to do. And these pre-reading and case studies are examples which are drawn from the international landscape as well. Now, having said that, it brings me to the point of how do we get people onto this program? So all our programs, we have a little bit of a sort of recommendation. But for our executive development program, we have a little bit more than just a recommendation. We actually have a selection criterion, which we're hoping that participants or prospective participants would adhere to. So let me say, I've mentioned earlier on, aligned to NQF level 8, the duration of the program, and when I use that word duration, means the program is registered with the university for 7 months, but the actual delivery of the program happens over 14 days of class time, which is divided into 3 study blocks. But don't worry, I'll give you a broader perspective of how the study blocks will run out and roll out. But that is how long the program has been registered for. And in essence, what that means is those 14 days would be the days that you will have to attend class as well. So who is this program designed for? It's then designed for executives with at least 2 years of experience at the executive or director level, overseeing a team of senior managers. Now don't despair. If you're now right now thinking that my job title doesn't say that I'm a director, or my job title doesn't tell the people that I'm an executive, we are aware that many organizations use different naming conventions in how they sort of label or title the jobs that people do. And for that reason, when people apply, we require that you submit a CV, and part of that is that sometimes it's also necessary for us to do an interview just to make sure that we not unfairly exclude a person, but also sometimes that we not unfairly include a person. There's nothing more frustrating than being included into a program where you're feeling totally out of depth. And so we wouldn't want to do that to anyone, but we also do not want to be unfair to exclude someone who could have benefited and contributed significantly to the learning, not only of themselves, but also of the other delegates that might be on the program. And as promised, I'll say a little bit more around the application process just now. Why this program? We believe it will support the need for executives to appreciate the global perspective and an understanding of global markets. It will enable them to apply cognitive and adaptive thinking to support their leadership decisions. And then also it will equip them to deploy creative workforce strategies, which will enhance their workforce diversity as well as their organizational performance as such. Thank you, Chanel. So let me talk about those admission requirements. On the little table on the left-hand side, we often say to our participants, there's no formal tertiary qualification required, but it is obviously recommended. But we're hoping that the incumbent would be a candidate who have a team of senior managers as the direct reports. I've mentioned earlier on that we're looking at people with at least 2 years serving in an executive or director level role. And then some of the other recommendations is we expect them to have some sound general knowledge and experience of one or other functional and strategic management across various business units. And as mentioned earlier on, the admission is quite strict, and it can be subjected to a selection process where an interview, a personal interview, may be required. Now, what helps us, because as the applications come in, we really have a CV that will help us to make a decision around whether the person is appropriate to be admitted onto the program. What helps with that, apart from indicating the level at which you are working, but the information around your current contribution to strategic decision-making in your organization, if that can be sort of indicated on the CV, maybe some evidence or maybe some sharing of the type of leadership challenges that you faced and how you've handled them in the past. Maybe also just some information around how you are currently or have in the past influenced your stakeholders. Because a lot of the role as an executive is around dealing with stakeholders as you network around. And then maybe also what would really help us a lot is to see, like from your own leadership perspective, do you have some examples of where you've led in a major change or maybe led in a major transformation as well? Now, these are not requirements per se, but helping us to make a decision around that is to provide us some form of information, background a little bit around that. Now, obviously, if you haven't included that, if you have already submitted an application, don't worry about that. I am currently in the process of doing some interviews as well. And then sometimes we get that information from the interview, but that's just something going forward. If you are planning to apply, it will really be helpful if you can sort of indicate that kind of detail as well. Thank you, Chanel. Let's talk about the program itself. And I do not want to run the risk of reading what you see there, but you can notice that there's a whole list of learning outcomes that we're hoping to achieve throughout this entire program. And a lot of the outcomes is focused around responsible leadership, the issues of sustainability, understanding that as executives, we really need to focus on our ethical leadership as well. We're looking at the emergent futures and looking from a futures perspective. You've heard in that little video earlier on, one of the participants kind of focused a lot on that was a highlight for that particular participant. Looking at the technological disruptions and how that can impact on businesses. And then also looking at the effectiveness of an organization's marketing strategy, as well as helping delegates to deal with complex and analyzing complex financial statements so that they can identify opportunities for growth and cost optimization, but also with regards to managing the risk within an organization as well. And so our hope in reaching these outcomes is to divide, like I've mentioned earlier on, into 3 study blocks. And these study blocks are then themed as the first block, we focus a lot on responsible leadership. In the second block, we focus on understanding the world, and we close it out with looking at responsible strategic enablement. So for the first block, the modules that will be covered will be around responsible leadership, which we will do for 2 days. We then deal with sustainability as a strategic imperative. We focus on ethics and governance, and we close it out with a session on boardroom dynamics that we finish within the first block. After that, usually there is an assignment for each of these blocks. So you'll go away, come back, submit the assignment in the meantime. And the second block will be a remote block, and we focus this on in the following manner. So we do 2 days and then give you a day or 2 break in between. As busy executives, we are quite mindful that you cannot be out of your office for many, many long periods of time. So we'll do strategic systemic foresight and future studies. give you a break, then do 2 days of strategic management, have a short break again of a day or two, and then closing it out with global economic trends, as well as technology and innovation. When you come back for the third block, which is another in-person block, we'll focus on strategic marketing, financial strategy, and you can see there's a lot of focus on how do you manage risk. So we do a full day of risk management, and then we go into the challenges of cyber risk and security, and then also how do you manage reputational risk as well. So how does this roll out then? The program will start with an orientation session, which will be remotely facilitated on the 28th of May, and then followed by the different study blocks. Study block 1 and study block 3 will be immersive 4-day face-to-face experiences each. In other words, in total, those 2 blocks makes up 8 days. And then the second block will be a 6-day remote learning study block, which will be happening via video conferencing as well. So you can see the block 1 and block 2 will be out in Stellenbosch. And then at the end of the program, we also have to do a action learning project. And that action learning project will be presented by the different syndicate teams on the 31st of October. During the course of the program, you will be divided into syndicate teams, and those syndicate teams will have a dry run on the 30th of October, whilst they will do your final presentations on the 31st of October. Thank you, Chanel. In our design approach, these were the different factors that we have considered. Amongst other, obviously, I've spoken about the blocks. I've spoken about the orientation session. I've spoken about the guest speakers already. I've mentioned the individual assignments, and maybe just to highlight that for you, like I've mentioned, there will be a number of individual assignments. And one of the reasons for that is that we issue you at successful completion with a certificate of competence. And to sort of meet the criteria for that, that is why we have these individual assignments as well. We also have, like I've mentioned, the action learning project, which will be a group project, and that will be part of your assessment or assignments that you have to complete. From an assessment point of view, and here I refer to what we call psychometric assessment, there is a leadership assessment that you will be required to do right just before the start of the first study block. And that assessment will be used within the class setup when we are facilitating the responsible leadership module as well. Then I've mentioned about our faculty members that we use, which are both sort of honed in academia, as well as being pragmatic from a practical point of view. And then through the use of a person at which we refer to as the executive leadership integrator, you will have some feedback loops or informal sort of feedback sessions where the executive leadership integrator will assist and support you as well. Having said that, let me share a little bit more around the executive leadership integrator. This person is an executive coach, and the role is sort of written around the fact that they need to support the participants to develop their own leadership practice throughout the program. So this will take place through the integration of reflective practice, systems thinking, and also responsible leadership. And so what the ELI, or the executive leadership integrator, will do, they will custom design with you, co-create with you, and implement your own learning journey through regular coaching sessions, conversations, and this support will enable you to stretch yourself and get the most from the program. Like I've mentioned earlier on, there is also the action learning project, and so there's a stretching group project that you will have to do, and your ELI will then also guide you and support you through that in terms of scoping it, making sure that you reach a stage where you can do a meaningful recommendation as well. This slide is just quickly sharing to you what we are hoping to achieve throughout the action learning project. But in essence, what it is an opportunity where you can utilize the modules or the content from the modules. You can utilize that to apply it into your learning. This project at the EDP level is a project that will be an industry-wide project rather than just focusing on a specific business and well. And what it does, it hones your ability to think critically and analytically, as well as to find and use appropriate learning resources in order to come to solutions that are real, but within the context of sustainability as an imperative for leadership development as well. Thank you, Chanel. So the process usually unfolds. There's applied research guided by the ELI. You will be divided, like I've mentioned, within syndicate teams. By the way, we keep those teams as diverse as we possibly can. And then obviously, people from different countries bring different perspectives, different organizations bring different perspectives. And we're hoping that all of that will be used so that we can come up with innovative ideas of how we can continuously lead within our society. And then as part of the outcome, we are hoping that there will be an implementation of a solution, and you will have the opportunity to pilot or also at least just do a testing of the idea by means of a pilot study if possible. But the intention must be that this is not just an academic exercise, but it's really something that we're looking at. How can we sort of change the trajectory of what we're doing in not only our society, our organizations, but also in our industries as such. Thank you, Sunil. I mentioned earlier on that we will share some information around what are the possibilities after the program. So one of the reasons why we have some assignments to be required to be done by individuals is because we're looking at recognition of prior learning as well. And this is a very kind of a more South African phenomenon, that in our country, due to our history, not everyone has been able to pursue tertiary studies. And we have made an arrangement with the rest of the business school, the academic side of things, at successful completion of the EDP, participants will be eligible for 30 credits out of 120 to do or to enroll for a postgraduate diploma in one of the 3 options listed over there. That is in terms of business management and admin, or in development finance, or within project management. Very important. Completing the program doesn't mean that you get automatic enrollment into it. You still need to qualify for the admission requirements, which will happen at the discretion of our institution. And that is related to the rules and laws of the recognition of prior learning, what is possible and what is not possible. However, should you meet those criteria, you will then be eligible to use that 30 credits, and that will give you exemption or part exemption for some of the modules on the PG DIP or the postgraduate diploma. Also important to note that you have 5 years in which you can utilize that sort of allowance, which means if you don't use it in the 5 years after you've completed, it will then expire as an option for you. I think on that note, Chanel, I want to close out, but before I say thank you for your attention, I want to close out by just reminding you, at the end of our program, you will become a proud member of the Alumni Association. On the right-hand side of the slide, there's a couple of benefits that you get by being an alumnus of our university. And quite interesting to mention that you become then part of about 35,000 strong member organization across 15 chapters in Africa, the UAE, Europe, UK, Ireland, as well as Canada. And so I really would like to encourage you. I was doing an interview with someone yesterday, and one of the things that came out of this particular conversation was the networking possibilities that comes out of being a part of an alumnus. And so on that note, I would like to say we are ready to also listen to some of your questions, as we are going to give you an opportunity to, if you have a question, you can raise your hand. My colleagues will assist in us looking at who's asking the question. But let me say thank you for listening to me thus far, and the floor is open for any questions you may have. Usually when I'm facilitating, I normally tell the class, this is your time to speak. so I'm going to say that to you. It's your time to speak.
Kev, if I can maybe just read out one question here. There's a question: if I've done the SMDP, do I need to follow this criteria? Or has it been answered?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for highlighting that, Claire. Yes, so the criteria, and I'm sure that the question is, I've done the SMDP, I would like to do the EDP now. And so like I've explained earlier on, we keep this program to ensure that there's value added to executives. So people who are working at that level, and if you haven't worked at an executive level, so there's a strong point I want to make. Of course, you can benefit from coming onto the program. But one of the difficulties is we're looking at a program that will not just prepare someone for the executive function, but we're looking at a program that will take your executive leadership to the next level. And so from that perspective, yes, if you do not meet the criteria for what we are looking for in terms of being at that level, it's going to be difficult to be part of the program. And I like to call it something, it's your lived experience, man. Like you get a psychologist who's trained in couples therapy and marital therapy, but you'll find very often nobody goes to that one because you have book knowledge about marriage. You don't have practical experience about marriage. It's that kind of idea that I think is important to note. So from that perspective, yeah. However, we from time to time look at every application that we receive. So if you feel that you have what it takes in terms of the work that you are doing, and maybe your job title doesn't describe it, you're free to do the application. I will go through it, and if need be, I will set up an interview with you, and we can have a conversation on whether that is something that will add value to where you are at the moment.
Kevin, another one is it wise to do the EDP when I already have we have an MBA?
We have quite a number of participants who come on our EDP, and so that's why I say it's not an academic exercise. It's not something that adds to your academic credential as such, but it is something where we say, how do we, so even if you have an MBA, how do we accelerate, how do we take your leadership to the next level as an executive, rather than just saying, how do I prepare you to be an executive? And I know that for many people, that's the need. I'm a senior manager. I haven't been an executive, but I want to become an executive. And so for many people, that's the need. I want to do this course because I can recognize how it will prepare me for the next level. And so for us, we're saying, yeah, that is important, but maybe once you are in that position, there might be a better opportunity for you to say, how do I take my leadership now and take it to the next level? So with an MBA, yes, it will be to your benefit to do the EDP.
I see Samantha has a question. What are the application details for submission, Kevin? There is going to be a mailer that will be sent out after this session, or first thing tomorrow morning. We'll have all the information, and then Kevin will also, I think it's the last slide that he will present, some contact details for where we can assist.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't worry. Also, I think we will make as much information available to you, but also on the last slide, there will be some contact detail. You would have seen Charmaine Mitchell, who's in the room as well. She's our client liaisons person. She normally will send out an email to everyone. So you will get the the proper information in terms of the application process as well. Thanks.
I see the last one here is from Miguel, and if you do not qualify for the specific program that you applied for, is it possible to do a bridging course?
Okay, so sometimes when I get the application, I can look at where the person is working at, and then I make a sort of a judgment in terms of which program will help this participant. So sometimes I recommend maybe do the SMDP, but also sometimes I recommend maybe do the postgraduate diploma, because in as much as, and I hope you would get the difference. So if you do the postgraduate diploma, it's more than what you would think. It's more focused on the academic criteria to achieving that. Our programs are focused more on the practical application of what that means. And then sometimes it is quite useful for a participant maybe to do the PG DIP, if they meet the criteria for that as well. So we don't have a bridging course, but if you have applied and your application came via my desk, I would have made a recommendation if I was not able to accept you onto the program.
Okay, we've got another one here that says, is there any indication of what faculty will be used and the experts on the course?
So we can talk about our faculty. With regard to our guest speakers, we don't have those names available as yet, but our marketing team plays a very critical role in sourcing the most relevant and recent speakers. So that's why it's not available immediately. But from our faculty, yes, we have, I don't know if people know our faculty, but from a leadership point of view, we have our Professor Meester Clark, Arnold Smith, Dr. Natasha Winkler-Titus, that's the faculty for leadership. From ethics and governance, we have Professor Stan Duplessis. From sustainability, we have Dr. Jess Schulschenk. We have Dr. Jaco Volskenk for strategy. So yeah, those names are all available. And if you would like me to, I don't want to go through a list because you may forget, but we can make that available if you need us to do that. Good. Okay. Right. It seems like, because there's one, I think Laz was saying, if you've done MDPs, MBA, and EDP, is there any specific related to a qualification? Laz, those programs have different recognition of prior learning paths. So for example, if you've done an MDP, there is a way that you can articulate into a Bachelor of Management and Leadership degree at the University of Free State. If you have done the SMDP, there's also that possibility. But in addition to that, there's also the possibility with the University of Lincoln in the UK, where you have like about 240 credits out of 360, I think, towards a honors degree at University of Lincoln as well. So there are different articulation programs, but the three together don't lead to one qualification, but there are different options available. If you would like some more information, I can ask that Charmaine provide you with some info, which will help you to look at that as well. There's a question. In fact, there's no age limit. Interestingly, I was just talking to a 32-year-old executive yesterday, so you can see that they do come in young. But for my sins, I'm already 62, so I'll just say it behind my hand. No, there's no age limit. You can come because there's value to be added from that. So please do not underestimate that. Yeah, no age limit. Timotheus, I read your question. If you want to, we can have a conversation separately around it. His question is just around some organizations require a person to shadow an executive, some executive work combined with attending this program. In this case, how does the qualifying criteria address this aspect of a prospective person? I would suggest that you maybe let's set up a conversation, and we can see how we can support such a request. Yeah. Miguel, unfortunately, no. NSFAS doesn't fund any of the programs that we do. Yeah. Good. Thank you, Chanel. I think that's it for now. Oh, Kerry.
Hi, Kevin. Hi, everyone. I'd just like to add that the Executive Development Program, as well as any other off-the-shelf program or open enrollment program that we offer, is also available for organizations as a closed cohort. So if the bones of this program appeal to you as an L&D executive, then by all means, we can take the bones of this open program and we can augment it, or we could deliver it as it is within your own organization. So the opportunity with an open program is that you have exposure to multiple industries and different roles, etc., different countries, nationalities. But the opportunity within your own closed cohort, which is what we refer to it as, is that you could align the additional meetings that you have potentially to your points here about the mentorship opportunities with leadership. You could align that and augment this open program within your own organization. There is always that opportunity to take any open enrollment program that Stellenbosch Business School Executive Development offers and to host it within your own organization. Just to say that. Thanks, Kevin.
You're welcome. Thanks. Thanks for highlighting that as well. Thanks, Kerry. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, as we're about to close, I want to say thank you. But we've mentioned that there would be some contact details. So in the rest of Africa and in South Africa, we have different people that we like to call underground. So we have country representatives, and this is the information that you can. So in Kenya, in Botswana, in Namibia, Ghana, and Zambia. But if you can't get hold of any of those people, we have Charmaine that I've referred to earlier on, who is the first person's detail that you find it. I would recommend that maybe at this point, you take a quick screen grab for yourself so that you just have this contact detail. Should you have any questions after this. Kelly also has given my email address in the chat earlier on. So if you want to maybe just sort of talk to me about it, you are welcome to drop me an email and then we can take it from there. But these are people that is within these respective countries, and it's a good place to start to get more information. And at any point when necessary, they will sort of rope me in if it's necessary for me to explain something as well. Thank you so much for your time with us this morning. Thank you for considering us as your partner in your development space. And we're certainly looking forward that we would be able to welcome you on the 28th of May to the orientation session. And then after that, we will get you into Cape Town and welcome you on the 2nd of June as we then start the first block of the program. You enjoy the rest of your day. For those of you who are interested in cricket, there's some good cricket happening. Australia is playing against India. I saw earlier on that some people have problems with the soccer teams that they are supporting, but don't worry, we all have problems in this world, but we navigate and we get through all of that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.